story. So 11 years back, 2008, I was working on a very, very interesting, innovative solution. This was on smartphones. And I spent more than a year on this solution, building new features into it, porting this on multiple mobile platforms, leading a team, getting more stuff done. But all these years later now when I look back, I'm thinking, did I add value to the user that I was creating this innovation for? No. Did I add any value to the company that I was creating this for? No. Was that innovation? Apparently not. That's what I think today. But that's the benefit of hindsight. So one of the most important things to look at is how do you create innovative solutions effectively, right? Yes, everyone is innovating, but how do you really do it effectively? How do you increase the likelihood of all those innovative ideas you're creating? How do you increase the likelihood of those ideas reaching the markets and maybe succeeding or failing? That's even later. But the very first part is how do you make it go to that stage through all the organizational aspects that are involved. So we look at how do you create effective innovative solutions. So what I'll take you through in the next 25 to 30 minutes is first we look at some innovation challenges, and I'm sure many of you here will be able to kind of relate with quite a few of these. Then we look at a very simple solution framework on how do you mitigate around this and how do you build it into your daily DNA. And then we'll wrap up with some key takeaways. Sounds like a plan? Yeah. All right. Okay, so before I begin, my name is Shubham Bhattacharya. I live in Oslo. I'm happy that Andrea invited me over to Copenhagen, my second trip to Copenhagen, so it's always a nice thing to be back here. I work as a director of strategic portfolio management in a company called Nagra. And we are based out of, we are headquartered in Switzerland, but I work in the unit in Oslo. And I have previously worked with consumer brands like Philips and Samsung in different kinds of roles. I'm an engineer by heart, and I moved to Europe from India to pursue an MBA in HEC Paris, that's France. And over all these years, through the entire career that I've had, like I said, I've been a developer, so I've spent 10 years coding myself. And I flirted with innovation and technology all of this while, and where I've really found my calling is product management. So when I was working with Philips TV in Belgium, I used to be a product manager for the Android TV and the smart TVs that we had back there. And until more recently in Oslo, I was a product manager for security solutions within the company that I work in. So product management is really one of those passionate topics that I'm really interested about. So the one commonality that I've seen between product development, product management, and now in portfolio management, so strategic portfolio management, is that dealing with innovation, and you see I start with the zero, so that's a bit of the developer in me still anchoring arrays with zero, right? So dealing with innovation is always a challenge, no matter where you are, the development, the product management, or it's the portfolio management. So we all like to make fun of Kodak. Ivan started with that. I do that as well.
You too.
I just add a couple more here. So yes, we've seen this, and it's important to understand also what really is common. Yes, we know all of these are in the state they are, but what was it? What state were they in? So all of these three were technology pioneers in their space. They were leaders. They had massive market shares. They were really leaders in their space. Very difficult to displace. They had huge market shares, and yet they do not exist in the same shape, size, and form that they were before, right? They bankrupted, pivoted, trying something else, hoping to survive, and all of that. So we know innovation is hard for these large, massive organizations. Research has it, like many other research points, and Johan had a point on similar lines, that the big mature companies that are trying to grow by entering into new businesses, very few of these succeed. So one of these data points here, only 10% of these succeed. Some say 15%. So they really find it hard, innovating and trying to enter new businesses and succeeding in that. This thing is really tough to do. And yet, standing in Copenhagen in the land of Lego, I'm sure you guys know that Lego at a point in time was almost bankrupt. Right? This was 2003 when Lego had $800 million of debt on their books. And I looked up the revenues for that year. They had $900 million of revenue for that year. So they were having a very tough time, and the reasons behind this was that one of their patents on these Lego bricks had just expired. And for Lego, their intellectual property, these patents, were their key competitive advantage. So if these expired, that resulted in many copycat products coming onto the market, which meant that there was a lot of pressure on their margins, a lot of pressure on the revenues. So this was doomsday, right? And yet, that's my 9-year-old daughter playing with Lego friends today. I would say, thankfully, to the CEO of Lego who was brought in the year 2004, he turned the company around. What do you think he did? Did he invent new products from the day one, said, let's innovate in new products? Was that the mandate? No. So what he did, in fact, is started triggering innovation first in the manufacturing process. So streamline the manufacturing process because it was simply too complex. Things have to be done in a simpler manner. So cleaning the backyard was the first thing to do. The second step was, let's take bold decisions on killing stuff that doesn't matter to the business. Or killing initiatives, killing products, killing new ideas that are running, but that are not core to brand Lego. They don't need to exist, right? Just kill them off. These are hard things to do. And then it was only after this did he venture into creating new products through innovation. And even for that, like Steve Blank likes to say, he made the company go out of the building. So they went out, spoke with the people who buy the products, who play with these products, and these are two different people, right? And they kind of unraveled and discovered new underserved segments of users. So my 9-year-old daughter plays with Lego in a very different manner compared to her 9-year-old classmate who's a boy. They have very different playing tendencies, which is when they realized that girls play with Legos differently, and they started looking at this and launched Lego Friends, which was an instant hit. So they clearly did something right in terms of innovation compared to the 3 giants you saw before. Right? They had this sequence correct that was relevant to their own business. So understanding that Lego has, for example, limited resources, right? We need to prioritize correctly. That was one of the things. So we as product managers in this room also often need to face up to this reality that we have limited resources. Yes, we have a lot of money in the bank, some companies do, but you still have limited financial capability, and there are different innovation projects that are competing for the same set of resources. Then you have people and competencies, so capabilities, competencies built in a company, right? It takes time to build these competencies. So if you want to do something new, you have to either build new competencies by hiring new people or retraining your own staff. And both of these takes time. And time is scarce. It's one of the rarest resource available actually, especially in the time of this hyper competition that we are in. And as product leaders, we always want our ideas to be massively successful, right? We want it to have a very high degree of success. But we as product leaders then have 2 things to balance between. One is creating value for the customer. That's our core mandate. But as product leaders, we also have to capture value for the business. And how do you balance that line is a tough day job for a product guy. So especially when a product manager walks into the executive team saying, this is the new initiative we want to run, he has to be very clear. He has to articulate very clearly on what the objective is. Are you trying to increase market share? Or are you trying to increase brand equity? Or is it about profitability, right? Whatever it is, the executive team needs to know clearly what this innovative idea will do to whichever metric is being pointed at. So as a product leader, the ability to balance between these 2 is very important. So when you think back about challenges on limited resources, the balancing act that you have to do on an everyday basis, you have to also see if you're asking the right questions. Are you solving the right problems? And are you, like the picture shows, are you hitting the hammer on the right head, right? And when you're doing this, you also need to ask yourself if you're solving problems for the people that matter to the business, right? Yes, you're solving problems, but do they really matter to the business that you're in? So asking all of these right questions, going out there, seeking the answer, sometimes right, sometimes wrong, and going through a validation process of figuring this out is essential. So trying to innovate is a bit like this. Hung up in between, you don't know what you're going to do next, where your hand is going to, or you're going to land in the pit below. Regardless, you have to start by asking these questions, validating what kind of insights you get, acknowledge and accept the fact that you have these limited resources, and then do this daily balancing act. So that's what the very first step of innovation challenge is. So what I'm going to take you through now is a very simplistic three-step framework, three-step solution space. I like the alliteration with the S. So we'll begin with first knowing a user, right? When you're brainstorming, that's one use case. When you're brainstorming, second is when you're creating an initiative that you want to pitch to someone, or you're thinking of a new idea. Who is your user? Understand your user, and why does that really matter? Because understanding or knowing a user more deeply will help you articulate the key value proposition that you're going to deliver. And often key value proposition sounds like a very fancy word. Key value proposition, what does it really mean? Well, simply speaking, it's what is the main challenge that you're solving for your user that you're targeting, right? So if you think about that, when you're trying to understand what your user needs, build in user research. And this is often neglected, but build in user research way early into your innovation thinking. Whether you're brainstorming or whether you are formulating an innovation initiative, build user research early on. Try to get these insights. And once you're getting these insights, you have a lot of information to walk through. There are several frameworks that are available up in the market here, or in the technology space as well. How many of you have heard of jobs to be done? Show of hands. So 4, 5, a few here. How about value proposition canvas by Strategizer? Okay, almost equivalent. Great. So in my opinion, jobs to be done by Clayton Christensen or Tony Ulrich, depends which author you look at, or and the value proposition canvas by the Strategizer folks are both interesting mechanisms of articulating what these user needs are. So you're trying to find out what are the jobs that an end user is trying to achieve, what are the challenges they have in fulfilling the objectives they have, what pains do they have, what kind of things would delight them. Trying to figure all of that out and put that in a certain framework to systematically think through it helps you understand your users better. Now, one place I've seen this done really well was in my own experience when I moved from Belgium, where I used to live in Kent, to Norway, when I moved into Oslo. One of the first things you do when moving countries, especially when moving on a job, is open a bank account because I wanted to be paid by my company. The salary is kind of important. So, at this bank, the lady at the counter is helping me do the paperwork, right? She's filling out the forms, and then she says, "Sir, do you speak Norwegian?" Indian guy, moved into Norway, it's been 2 weeks, there's no way I will be speaking that language. Truth be told, 2.5 years, I still don't. But regardless, for the sake of the example, I think it works well. So I said, "Sorry, I don't, but is that a problem?" And then she goes, no, that's quite okay. And then the next thing I see her doing is she turns around, opens the drawer at her desk, pulls out this stack of printout of paper, right? She hands me this stack of paper and says, "This is a user guide printed in paper. This has all the net banking pages of our website, and there are tooltips in English to help you navigate through them because our website is in Norwegian." This is how it is going to be, right? But I lived in Europe for 7 years, and I kind of started to depend upon a browser to help me navigate through these translated pages. And I appreciated the effort she made, right? Nice stack of user guide. I said, "Great, thanks, but I think I'll survive." So I took that anyways and moved on. And like any other digital native probably in this room, once my account got activated, the first thing I did is go to the Apple App Store and download the mobile banking app. And this is where I was really delighted, because this app was in English. It's not so much about the language, but it's really knowing that this bank had an idea about its user base and knew that there is a certain segment of users who would appreciate this app in this certain language so that they can deliver all the services they have to me. They do a massively good job at upselling, fulfilling my basic needs, all of that on this mobile banking app. And truth be told, 99% of the time that I've interacted with any form of internet banking with these, it's been at my fingertips on the mobile app, right? So this bank really knew where to spend its resources. Rather than having some kind of fancy feature, they actually prioritize knowing where their end users are and how do we deliver this service to them in a language they understand so that they can consume the services. And I state this because I have an example of another bank which has really well done English web pages on their browser, but I don't use that. I do it on the app, and their app is in Norwegian, so that didn't work for me. So if you don't do this, if you don't try to understand who your users are, what their needs are, then you end up pushing technology onto them. And I'm a living example of that, and I'm sure there are a few more like me, who've pushed technology onto their end users. So this example I started with at the beginning, 11 years back, right? That was me creating a fantastic innovative solution, pushing technology on my end users. And I'll elaborate a bit on that. So this was when I was working at Samsung, and we had an umbrella, and I was working in Samsung Mobile. So we had an umbrella ideology that we wanted to make the life of our end users as simple as possible when it comes to multimedia experience. What does a multimedia experience mean? When you're watching a video, when you're taking a picture, listening to music, that experience has to be interesting, exciting, immersive, and all that. So under this umbrella, I had some fantastic ideas, and then we filed patents, created patents, and went on working on the solution. Now, what was this solution all about, which didn't create value for anyone apparently? So imagine a smartphone screen with a 2x2 grid of videos, right? So if you have 4 videos on your screen, my patent enabled me to play all these 4 videos at the same time. Keeping the audio off, of course, because I'm not playing 4 audios together. 4 videos playing at the same time, and this was back in the day when, you know, Nokia had Symbian operating systems. That existed. Windows CE existed. So decoding or playing 4 videos at the same time was rocket science, literally. Right? So I could do that. So I was excited about it, naturally. And why did I really do it? Because I wanted my end user to see these 4 videos playing at the same time, make a judgment of which video he wants to pick, and then he will go ahead and play. That was my idea. So developing this, worked with the UX designers in Korea, the headquarters, South Korea. The guy comes back with interaction design, right? And he says, here's what you're going to do. 1 video is going to play, and the remaining 3 videos are going to be static. None of them are playing, as it is. And all the designers in the room are probably thinking that was a smart thing. But I didn't. So I was like, I can play 4 videos at the same time, 4 or even more, right? Why do you want me to keep just 1 playing and the remaining 4 paused? The user is going to have an amazing experience knowing all the 4 and making the choice. The designer didn't relent, and neither did I. And eventually, you know what I did? I ignored his advice. I said, I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to play 4, not only 4, but even more videos. So I designed a fancy UI making more videos play, ported this on Linux mobile, and back then the mobile ecosystem was so fragmented, I don't even have count 8 or 10 operating systems that I ported this on. And I took pride in the solution because it was a platform agnostic solution. It worked on any mobile operating system, and I could decode so many videos at the same time. Yes, now I know. As a human being, I often have a tough time focusing on one thing. Imagine 4 videos at the same time. It was just a bad idea. But what did I do? Did I ask anyone? Did I go out and ask someone? Yes, I did. I asked all my teammates. All the developers in the team. Guys, what do you think? Is this nice? Cool. So that was my level of user research, right? So they all loved it, and we tried to get it done, but that was a bad idea. I know it today. So be very careful and alert about the fact that as technologists, we often have the tendency of pushing technology onto others because we take pride in something. But it's really important to first know if you're creating value, if you're solving a pain for the end user. So put in early user research, and not the likes I did back then, asking my developer teammates, to ask the real user, right? That matters. And then be alert about this fact that you can tend to push technology. And then you have the likes of the value proposition canvas, you have the jobs to be done frameworks, and different kinds of prioritization mechanisms, which we can talk about links afterwards, that you can really use to bring more value into this? So that was the first one, understanding your user. What's the second? It's knowing your customer. And yes, your customer and your user is not necessarily the same. So knowing your customer is important, but how do you know your customers, right? To understand who your customers are, you need to understand first what your business model is. And no, a business model is not an Excel spreadsheet. I often get this view, we just need to get the business model done, which means somebody puts costs, revenues, and a cash flow from a timeline and says, yeah, that's the business model. Well, it's not really. It's a revenue model or something. So what is a business model? It's understanding who you're selling to, who your customers are, what are you delivering to them. So that's the customer centricity part of it. The second part is, how are you going to deliver? What are the operational stuff you need to get done? And the third part is, how will you do this profitably? Cost versus the revenue balance. That whole picture is basically what your business model is. And one of the very good tools to use this, for the folks who've heard about Strategizer, definitely know the business model canvas. So there's a fantastic book called Business Model Generation. So if you haven't read this, I actually forgot to put a slide on that. Business Model Generation, look this book up. It's a fantastic read. I read it back in 2012 and it's changed my thinking about business models dramatically. So if you think about that, understanding your business model is important because you know who are your potential customers. Now, taking an example from the Nordics, if you think of Spotify, right? I'm a paid subscriber for Spotify. So I'm a customer of Spotify, a paid subscriber. I pay money to Spotify to listen to the music, to have ad-free music, unlimited downloads, and all of that. But then there are users who are not paid subscribers, they're listening to ad-based Spotify, right? Who is the customer there? It's the advertiser. It's the brand, it's that publisher. That's the customer for Spotify right now. It's not that end user. What does that mean really for you? For a team that is sitting in the organization knowing that there are different customers, it basically means, well, I have more places to find problems to solve, right? We all like problems to solve because that's what we want to do as product people. So you look at your product, your business model, you use business model canvas, for example, to visualize your customer segments, the value proposition you're delivering, how you're going to deliver it, and then you figure out what kind of customers do I have, and hence, what kind of problems can I find to solve. That expands your scope of ideation here. So who is your customer, what do they want, and how do you deliver those needs to them will help you understand this. So when working at Philips TV, I asked my developers in the team, who do you think is the customer for Philips TV? Right? Simple question. Anybody wants to make a guess? Show of hands, anyone wants to make a guess? Who is the customer of Philips TV? Yeah?
Dealers.
The dealers? What do you think?
Maybe some dealers.
Any other ideas?
Wives.
Sorry?
Wives.
That is a very good point.
That was what I was going to say.
Okay.
But then I was going to say, so it depends on who's buying and then who's using?
Yes, correct. So mixed answers here. So what happened when asking the developers here is they all said it's the end users who are buying this TV, like you and me or the wife who is making the decision to buy the TV and in the living room. While it is to some degree correct, the primary customer for Philips TV is the dealer. You're right, Moms. It's a B2B2C business. You have to sell first to the retailer. It's the Media Mart that is really first, the Saturn that is really first a customer of Philips TV, or any other TV maker for that matter. Right? The moment the developers understand this, it enlightens them, right? Oh, I can go beyond developing end user features. I can actually develop something that will help the retailer, that is my customer, to sell the TVs in a better manner on the shop floor. And that makes sense. Then it just opens up new avenues for them to find other problems to solve. So last summer I was reading a book which is a biography of Jeff Bezos, the founder and CEO of Amazon, and there was a very interesting anecdote about Amazon, a bit about prehistoric times, back when Amazon sold only books on their websites. This is really prehistoric times, right? So Amazon had just introduced a feature on their website which allowed readers or book buyers to post review comments about the book that they just bought. Now the reaction of the publishers of the books was, they just went up in arms saying, what are you doing? Because their reaction was, if a reader doesn't like the book, he puts a negative review about the book, and then that means that the book will be, less volumes of that book will be sold, revenues will be hurt, and Amazon, you will also be hurt in the revenues, right? It will hurt your business. And Jeff Bezos had a very interesting take on this. He said, we don't make money by selling things on our website. And that seems very counterintuitive for an online retailer to say that. We don't make money selling things on our website. This has stuck with me. So what he says is, we make money by helping our customers make purchase decisions. And if any one of you have interviewed with Amazon before, you would know they have these 14 leadership principles. How many of you have heard all of this? None. Okay. So Amazon has 14 leadership principles. If you interview with them, it's good to know. The number one leadership principle is customer obsession. And Amazon is known for its customer obsession. Anything and everything they do is focused around customer obsession. So when you think about the business model of Amazon, how do we deliver things to our customers? We have to be very customer centric. That's built into the business model. So knowing the customer is important, so knowing the business model is as important there. So think about your business model first, visualize this, map it out so you know who your customers are and you're able to identify what is the scope of innovation there. And then you can of course do more with your ideations. Now we talked about knowing your user, knowing your customer, and I'm missing some circles. And last is knowing your business. Understanding your business metrics is one of the most important things here. Primarily because you want to understand how do you want to capture value for your business. So, what is the priority for the business? Understand first, are you making losses, are you making profits, right? Are you in the green or in the red? What's the priority for the business? Is it increasing the user base, increasing the revenues because you want to bring in investor funding? Or is it increasing the profits because you want to fund something else in your business through those profits? Or is it about increasing the competitive standing in the market? What is it? What is the business? What is the ultimate priority for the business? This is important to know because when you're looking at different innovation initiatives, you will need some kind of guidance to prioritize between one or the other. Should you be looking at a moonshot project which might pay for itself in 5 years? Or should you be looking at something which is more, which will give you returns in the more medium term, 6 months to 1 year to 2 years? This is what will help you understand that. How many of you in the room here have heard of Philips Ambilight? Philips Ambilight. Okay, few of them. So I'm going to play a quick 30-second movie to show what this is all about. For those who have seen it, I'm sure you'll be happy to see this again. For those who have not, you will see this for the first time and maybe walk into a store and want to buy a Philips TV. I don't work there anymore. So this is like, oh, there's audio playing. Oh, it's here.
It's from the laptop, yeah.
Okay, it's not. So you will see a menu come up, and then the Ambilight will go on, which is basically the colors on the screen at the border of the screen getting replicated on the wall behind. It's copied on the wall behind. And the idea is it gives you a more immersive effect of the picture that you see. Now when you do this, when you see this thing in a dimly lit living room environment, it really gives an amazing immersive experience. But these TVs are sold in a retail environment, like this, right? TVs after TV stuck on the wall, hung on the wall, this much gap between the TV and the wall. So how do you see this effect then? So this was a unique selling proposition Philips TV had compared to any other TV maker, and yet they had a tough time selling this through. The retailer couldn't convince the end user on how to charge them a premium for this. Right? How do you do that? So under the realm of the business priorities of we need to keep a track on margins. We have to expand our margins, reduce waste. We had multiple innovative ideas that were focused on the teams. We had an idea on improving the smart TV user experience. There was an idea about improving the interaction between the TV and the mobile phone user experience. And there was yet another idea that said, we will improve the ability to demonstrate Ambilight on the shop floor. And keeping the priority in head that we have to expand margins, our profitability is key right now. And we don't want to invest in a very long-term thing. We decided to invest on improving the demonstration or the ability to demonstrate Ambilight on the shop floor. And the results we got was amazing. We had many of our retailers coming back satisfied and happy with the results that we delivered in terms of enabling them to deliver this. So they were able to charge the end user a premium And part of that premium, of course, comes into Philips TV business also. And that was the objective. So understand what your objective is to be able to prioritize between far and near-term projects, and then use it to capture value for your business. So going for the key takeaways now. We talked about the innovation challenge, asking the right questions, accept the limited resources, and you have to play this balancing game no matter how much you dislike it. You will have to balance between capturing value and creating value. So knowing a user, your customer, and knowing a business at the end of the day is really knowing a context. What is your context? Two companies in the same industry might have a very different context because of their own capabilities, right? So understand your context based upon the different business priorities that you also have there. So if you're able to, so if we go back and say, how will we create effective innovative solutions, and you're able to answer along these lines, keep asking these questions when you're brainstorming new ideas, when you're creating new initiatives, or even when you're communicating about your ideas across the organization, when you're communicating your priorities across the organization, build all of this in your daily processes instead of making it an afterthought, right? So with that, I'm done. Thank you so much for your time and attention.